My name is Greg Abler. I'm an attorney at the Center for Civil Justice. We are a nonprofit law firm in Flint, Michigan, who advocates on behalf of low-income families and individuals throughout the state of Michigan. Chairman Irwin and committee members, I appreciate the opportunity to come here today to talk about this important package of bills. I'd like to limit my comments to addressing some of the concerns that the mobile home industry representatives raised last week regarding these bills. I'd like to start talking about the abandoned mobile home titling process. We're talking about Senate Bill 488 here. The industry has expressed some concern that the process for acquiring title to allegedly abandoned mobile homes, as spelled out in 488, is onerous. It's not. All it does is it requires a mobile home park owner to provide written notice to the mobile home owner and to the Secretary of State declaring their intention to declare a particular mobile home as abandoned in their mobile home park, and to wait a short period of time, a short prescribed period of time, before they can go to the Secretary of State and apply for a clean title. But most importantly, what Senate Bill 488 does is it also requires mobile home parks to disgorge any equity in that mobile home rightfully to the mobile home owner. So what we have here are built-in protections that allow a mobile home owner the opportunity to be heard before their mobile home is taken, and it also prevents mobile home parks from profiting from abandoned mobile homes by requiring mobile home park owners to hand over the equity to the mobile home owner where it rightfully belongs. So there are significant constitutional due process issues involved here. The Secretary of State is constitutionally required to have a system in place that gives a person notice and a right to be heard before they can take the property and give it to somebody else. Senate Bill 488 addresses that constitutional concern. I'm a little mystified by some of the testimony last week from the industry representatives. If I understood them correctly, the argument is that since the Secretary of State eliminated the prior process, the old process, the process that lacked due process protections, they are required to make multiple court appearances and spend a minimum of 1 year and presumably attorney fees in clearing title to abandoned mobile homes. I'm mystified because Senate Bill 488 completely eliminates the need for mobile home park owners to step 1 foot into a courtroom. It eliminates the need to hire attorneys. This is a process that they can do on their own without an attorney at a low cost. And it provides a much more abbreviated timeline for them to clear title. So one would think that they would rally behind a process that saves them time, money, and expenses. So I do hope that this dispels some of the concerns that the industry has with respect to Senate Bill 488 being onerous. It's just not. The second and last topic I want to touch on is this idea of unjustifiable rent increases. It's time that we grapple with the huge problem of these exorbitant rent increases. Last week we heard from witnesses, mobile home park residents, who talked about these exorbitant rent increases, but no attendant improvements in the quality of life or conditions of these mobile home parks. We have these private equity investment firms out of state coming into our state, buying up these mobile home parks, jacking up the rent, refusing to make any meaningful repairs, let alone any capital improvements. The current statute is simply not designed to protect mobile home park residents against this influx of private equity firms who mean to come into this state and take advantage of our residents. And we're talking about, and we've seen from the testimony, we're talking about folks who are on fixed incomes, low incomes. Some may be disabled, elderly, veterans, and people who otherwise cannot protect themselves against this very real and growing and well-funded threat. So Senate Bill 486 begins to address this by providing some protections against exorbitant rent increases that are simply not justified. And to be clear, I've heard Senate Bill 486 referred to as rent control. It's not. And how do we know this? Well, first, Senate Bill 486 explicitly recognizes a mobile home park owner's right to recover a reasonable return on their investment. Of course they are. They're a business enterprise. They're allowed to do that. Secondly, it simply requires a mobile home park to justify any rent increases by demonstrating a need. And we're talking about increases in operating and capital expenditures. So the commission also has to approve the rent increase request if they demonstrate that simple requirement. It's not that hard to do. It's not burdensome. There's nothing in Senate Bill 486 that prohibits rent increases that exceed the consumer price index, despite assertions made from the industry. And really, there's nothing unique about placing parameters or guardrails around charges, for example, for consumer goods and services. So for example, our utility companies, before they can impose rate increases, they have to seek approval from the Public Service Commission by demonstrating a need for the rate increase. We have our Michigan Consumer Protection Act, which imposes significant limitations on price gouging. So this isn't anything that's unique or strange or foreign. Using the CPI as a guardrail, not a bright line rule, but as a guardrail, is not unheard of. For example, we have Proposal A. As you all know, Michigan voters passed the constitutional amendment way back in 1994 that changed the basis for property tax increases by limiting it to the CPI or 5%, whichever is lower. Now, that's a hardline rule, but Senate Bill 486 does not impose that hardline rule. In fact, it says a rent increase that exceeds the CPI is not necessarily an unjustified rent increase. It just isn't. So this isn't about rent control at all. It never has been. It's more accurately characterized as abusive practices control, and it really ought to be referred to as such. In the interest of time, I'll just close by saying that for years, mobile home park residents have been at the absolute mercy of an industry that has, by and large, had a blank check to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and however they want, without limitation and without regard to the residents who they serve. The current statute, the current act, is archaic. It provides next to no protections for residents, and it's time to level the playing field. And that's the point. We're not trying to elevate one group above another. We're just trying to level the playing field at this point. So this package of bills begins to remedy those defects. CCJ fully supports these bills, and we urge you to move them forward and get them to the governor's desk. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to come here and speak.